Hello world! Patricia, O'Connor, and Frida Reba Darcy will be here. We'll be here shortly. Where are you at? Today on the bonsai balcony, I've been trying to shoot this video for a little while, but my neighborhood has been quite noisy. You hear that? That isn't bad. That's what I consider a break. We have been listening to jackhammers all morning. So I think they're at lunch. So I'm going to do this. What are we doing? Well, I'm Patricia O'Connor. That was Frida Reba Darcy. This is the Bonsai Balcony. And today's show is about oak trees. Oak trees. I have a couple of oaks. This is a California oak. California coastal oak, I think. This is a cork bark oak. This one was started from seed from somebody who had a nursery and a bonsai collection, and when they passed away, their estate sold their trees, and this one was purchased by someone who had a bonsai garden, and that's how I came across this tree. It's a beautiful tree. It was ready for show when I got it. 2 years later, it suffered some dieback that had me just crying and chopping off huge chunks of this tree to try to get it to recover. That's a little of the backstory of this. It's coming back. Excuse me. It's coming back nicely. I like the work that's come along on this tree, and it's taught me a lot about oaks. The other one, this one came from a bonsai garden local to me in Alameda, California. I got it right around the time of COVID. Like during COVID, a bunch of places closed down, and during that shutdown is kind of when I started finding myself looking on the internet and discovering that the bonsai stores are places that I would have liked to have gone and seen now that I had time, and now that I've seen where they are and stuff, we're all closed for COVID. So as soon as Groveway Bonsai opened up, at least a few days after the lockdown, I hot-footed it out there, and this is one of the trees I saw, and I parted with real money and brought this thing home. It is a cork bark, and I have learned most of what I learned about oaks dealing with this tree. It is about a 40-year-old plus tree. I think it might have originally been an air layer. When I repotted it, looking at the bottom, it looked to me like I was looking at the bottom of a chopped limb, like it was a really clean cut at the bottom. It might have been that it just had really, really, really good root development work. Remember, I got it from a bonsai garden, a bonsai master. But on the other hand, it was also suffering from a lot of dieback. Cool things about this tree, when I got it, it had leaves that were very, very, very much smaller. Very uniform and very, very small. It also was suffering from dieback. I think maybe I assumed at the time, this could have been right or wrong, but I assumed at the time that it had probably been underwatered because of the lockdown was causing issues. And they had a lot of, this store, or this garden, had a lot of maples that they were really proud of. So I could see where their priorities would have been shifted, and something that is known to be drought tolerant might get skipped or might get less water, and it probably suffered. Like, I thought the tree looked pretty good, and I noticed that it had a couple of dead leaves, and when I got home I saw that there was more to cut back than I originally realized. And I also didn't know how to take care of an oak. Everything I learned about taking care of oaks, I learned on this one, and I learned on this one. By the way, is it just me, or is this guy getting fat and chunky and starting to look pretty good? I would say this tree is starting to have a hard time getting it all in frame in the space I have on the balcony. This thing is starting to really come along, and it's teaching me about proportions and balance and stuff. Yeah. Now, most of the things that I'm going to talk about are applicable to both, but when it comes to oaks, there are dozens and dozens of subspecies of oaks. Some of them are evergreen, some of them are not. Some of them are broadleaf, some of them are not. Um, a lot of times you will see oaks that grow like on an island or someplace where they're like cut off. You will get hybrids that have just, they will naturally hybridize with other species. It's kind of hard to, I think this is the California oak, but on the other hand, it could be a hybrid of several different species. But what I do know is it's an evergreen species. Both of my oaks are evergreen species. And they tend to respond well to the following things. Oaks tend to be hardy, drought resistant. On the other hand, if you whenever they get rolling and the temperatures are warm, they take up and use up a lot of water. And I water this guy every day. And on hot days, I may go through and water this thing more than once. Also, I never put water on the leaves. I deliberately can water overhead my pines. It's just I like doing that. It kind of like gives them a little shower, washes potential problems down the drain and gets dust and dirt and urban blight off of them. I love doing that to my vines. Not with my oaks. Do not do that. Do not do that. Do not do that. That will cause you dieback like you've never seen before, and all it was water. If I have instances where I have a lot of trees, and I'm looking at water potentially, say like I had a table full of oak tree cuttings or something, or acorns that I had planted. I've got a table full of those, and watering those is like with the water. I would make sure that I had a fan blowing on those to increase the air circulation around those and try to dry up that water. Water left standing on those leaves will wreck the vegetation as fast as any blight you've ever seen. Also, things can come through and wreck your oaks, and you won't even know what it's called until it's come and gone. I went through that, and I blame myself for it when I went through it on this tree. Like I said, I was doing a lot of major cutback. It was about 6 months later as I found out that was happening to a lot of people's gardens around here, and just something comes through, and it has a name if you bother to learn it, but that didn't make life at that time any easier. What I have learned since then is to be proactive. Here in the States, I'm able to use a systemic treatment. What is a systemic treatment? A systemic treatment is something that I buy that is good for predators or insects or things that would feed off of a tree. And you can actually look at that pot, for instance, and go, that is throw a figure out there, that is a 2-gallon pot. So based on 2 gallons, I would take 2 tablespoons and mix that, or 2 teaspoons per gallon, teaspoon per gallon basically. Mix 2 teaspoons based on that being 2 gallons in 1 gallon's worth of my watering can. That might be over a gallon, but I'm gonna throw my 2 teaspoons in there. Then I'm gonna take a 1 gallon milk jug and empty that in there, and that would be my right ratio. And I would pour that through the soil. That would then take that up into the foliage, and anything that tries to work on that tree might get a dose of something they never saw coming. And that's a good preventative. That's the noise that I spent all day trying to avoid. And that's a good preventative. Now, you would do this, and then 2 weeks later pour all of that through, and then 2 weeks later pour that through again, and those 2 treatments 2 weeks apart are considered a treatment. And then 6 months later you do that again. For me, I do that on all my trees. I mix up several batches for little trees, and I kind of generalize. Batches for bigger trees, and again I kind of generalize. What would be perfect for this might be more or less perfect for this, but I'm kind of generalizing when I do this. And then like I'll water on my big trees once, and then I'll go through and do all the medium size, and then come through and do all the small trees. So I do that in January because that's one. Good as time as any. You're going to do this twice a year. January, that's not hard to remember. If it's New Year's and I haven't watered them through, it's time to do that. Then again in July, because there we go, that's 6 months later. If you can't remember to do this on July, just remember 4th of July or the blue blazes of July or whatever it is you think about when comes midsummer, that's when I go again. So if it's the 4th of July and they're popping firecrackers and stuff and I haven't run my treatment through my trees, then that's that. Okay, I should remember to do so. So that is one thing you can do to hedge off a lot of beetles or some sniffles or some things that you can get that would affect oaks. Other things that affect oaks, I have found that they are not as easy to wire as, say, my pine trees. You can put wire on an oak and start pretzeling it out, and if the branch cracks, it will likely die. They don't, which tells me, this could be wrong, but it tells me that they probably don't transfer water in their vascular system like a pine does. If a pine gets a break in its lifeline somewhere and there's a break in that lifeline, it'll transfer water around side to side, back, forward, whatever it has to do to go around that break and continue to feed that lifeline. Not so with an oak. If you break the lifeline here, it won't transfer water somewhere else. Whatever was getting fed by that lifeline dies. So if you crack a branch, it's probably killed it. I have had branches die from overbending. So it's okay to put a little bit of motion in these guys. You probably want to do it when they're sort of green but not overly green. You're not going to want to leave the wire in place too long because they will fatten up quickly. If you use aluminum wire, they'll start straightening out your wire as they grow quickly. But you should back that off and then reapply it so that you don't get wire scars in any one particular place. And so they are a little, you have to be on your game to wire these, but it's worth doing, and it's a pretty okay way to put motion. I had to learn all of that. With this cork bark oak. I did everything you could possibly do. I broke branches that I had already had a year or two in and killed them. I have had them grow super, super long and then have everything behind that die back closer to the tree, and we get pom-poms on the end. And I've had undesirable branches on here, but they were so few in number that there was little on the tree that I felt good about cutting off because there wasn't enough foliage on the tree already, and I was left with bad branches. What do you do about that? Well, what you do about that is you cut your tips every year. You cut your tips, and what you will do by cutting your tips is you will change the hormone allocation on the tree, and it will back bud like a son of a gun. Also, feed your tree. Also, do that watering. Don't lean on the fact that they can go without water and say we're going to keep our tree smaller by holding back on the water. Nope, water. On this tree, since we had a little bit of problems a couple of years ago when we're in a building state, I feed it a lot. I feed it a low dose, but I'm doing that constantly. So it's a low dose constantly of these pellets, which are BioGold, and that a low dose, and by low dose I mean it's 555 when it comes to its nutrients. But I do that constantly. And the reason I feed and water as much as I could possibly want is we're in a building program. Once I have this guy back into show shape, for instance, and I pruned it back into something a little bit more show worthy, then it would be probably a good idea to back off the feeding some, but not all. So that we can maintain the proportions we have for as long as possible, and then at some point we'll need to go in there and clean up and maybe change our aesthetics as things go, because things don't really stay static. That is it on pruning. By pruning our tips, we get back buds. If we don't prune our tips, we'll see that our branches will just grow longer and longer out, and then we will get less and less energy back here. So you end up, it's by pruning our tips that we're able to get the tree to do all of this full thick stuff that it's doing. Also, just to note, some trees make these sharp barbs. Some oaks make these sharp barbs on the leaves, and some oaks make a little bit more of a pill-shaped leaf with less barbs. And some can do both. If this were in a field somewhere and an animal were to come and graze on the foliage and defoliate this tree, and it was kind of a Tylenol shape or a pill-shaped leaf, right? Tiny, almost an olive tree looking little leaf, okay? So then an animal comes and eats all those leaves. The second flush of leaves comes out, and they're gonna be spiny and barbed, little defense mechanism, which most animals would just keep chewing. But yeah, that's just a quick note about that. They do love their water. They are a little bit more trickier to wire, but it is rewarding. You can do guy wires on these guys, just like you would do others. For all of their ruggedness and all of their solidness, they don't like anything on their leaves. I have had powdery mildew on my oaks before from water damage, and then turn around and spray that with neem, making that nice waxy coating that I think is so beautiful, and think, there you go, and then have that just wreck them even more. So yeah, they're just not big. You know, like for instance, some trees can get powdery mildew, and my answer to that would be to rinse it off, but then put it under a fan so that you've increased the air circulation, which is the that's how you combat PM to begin with. But then blow all of that off so it doesn't just sit there and just be wet. Also, watering late at night. This is just general plant care. If you come in and water in late afternoon, it's likely that your plants have water on the leaves all night. That is a great way to invite PM. Okay, let's see. I replant my oaks every couple 3 years. This one has been repotted by me twice. What? This one's been repotted by me once in 4 years. It percolates rather well. I always thought it was underpotted. I've since learned a few more things about bonsai. I think those guys probably had a better handle on what they were doing. Personally, I would like that to be a round pot of about those same dimensions. And I think it could be potted a little bigger, especially since I am building. But at some point it may have been, before I saw or met the tree, it may have been a little closer to a finished tree, which would explain why. Then you can kind of see that this is a big block of wood here. We've got a pretty big block of wood. I am very, very happy with the way this tree is coming along this year. And what we've learned about pinching our tips was very well timed, and also a big benefit. We made all of these branches on here for all the problems that I mentioned that I had. The tree had different structure on it when I met it. So we built this and this, us and the tree built this and this and all, pretty much everything here. Everything that was original was some of it was dying back, and some of it just got replaced by me as we saw issues and as we just kept our little design aesthetic moving forward. I don't think it's a good idea when repotting these to don't want to bare root an oak. If you repot one of these guys, do not bare root your oaks. I have tried. We've got water oaks that grow on the property here, and every spring I'll find where the squirrels have planted all the acorns, and going back and seeing where the squirrels have planted all the acorns, and there'll be little oaks popping up everywhere. And I have tried. I wanted, like nobody's business, to get some little bitty mame oaks going. And a squirrel can plant an acorn and get pretty okay results. Me, not so much. I planted probably over 100 acres, and I have had zero luck. I think our coolness, I think it's just so cool here. It's temperature-wise that it's not the best place to start cuttings or maybe pop certain types of seeds, while other seeds just love it. Oaks, I've had a poor luck getting anything small to start. I've also had a hard time going out on our grounds and collecting some of those tiny oaks. I'm thinking that as a Yamadori, they might be hard to collect. I've never tried to collect anything of size, but I know you got to watch your game when you repot your oaks as far as that's concerned. I don't have the same difficulty repotting some of my oaks that have been domesticated in the home or in the garden for a couple of years. But having said that, I would leave 40% of the root ball. I would leave 40% of the root ball at any one given time when I repot my oaks. Never bare root them. Don't water the foliage. They're harder to wire, but rewarding to do so. And if you clip the ends of your trees, you will induce back budding. If you feed your trees, you will facilitate back budding. And if you water your trees, you will just increase vigor, back budding, and the girth of your trees. Oaks are really, really rewarding to grow. They're not really hard. There's just a few simple rules, and there's not a whole lot of maintenance to them. Pines, there's a couple of things you do to pines every year, and if you've got one or two, that's 30 minutes worth of work a year. If you've got a bunch of them, you can find yourself getting kind of busy. Oaks, not so much. You just kind of coast with them more, but they do have their issues. For all of their toughness and their ruggedness, I find that their foliage is a little finicky. I find that their branches are a little less forgiving, but I also find that their bark and their ability to be miniaturized and kept on scale to be very, very rewarding. I love oak. You probably, wherever you live, have some species of oak that lives around you. I hope some of this info, move away from all the noise. I hope some of this info is useful to you. And this was a little 20-minute, or we're gonna hold it at that and just do a parting shot of our cork bark oak. And I appreciate you. Frida appreciates you. And thank you for tolerating the noise. This is a weekday at an apartment where they're really big on their improvement. So yeah, I have to just look at the bright side of it, not wrecking anybody's weekend. And 2, people are making money, and 3, this is improving our neighborhood, whatever it is they're doing. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you, and Frida appreciates you. And our next drop will be this weekend when we do that thing we do.